Hello, this is the second in the series about shepherding and sheep. It's not necessarily the most attractive title, but it's a very important one in terms of the Bible. And so what I was talking about last time was the importance of following a shepherd, and of course also in that sense to discern the difference between the true and the false shepherd. Now, in the Bible, you have shepherding in the Old Testament, which is often quite distant, and the people who are shepherds of God's people are senior religious leaders or kings. In the New Testament, this sense of distance disappears because Jesus, as the Good Shepherd, operates in a very intimate fashion. And then he says to his apostles, "Get out there and feed my sheep." What the apostles discover is that as the church grows, they become more distant and they need people underneath them to work effectively with the sheep, but on a level of intimate care and compassion which you don't see in the Old Testament a great deal. You do get it. We mention, for example, Psalm 23 quite a lot. There's the all-caring shepherd and protective shepherd. There's Isaiah 40 where it says he tends his flock like a shepherd. He carries the lambs in their arms, and he gently leads those who have young. And we can feel the love, care and compassion of the Lord Jesus Christ coming through. So what I said I would do, if you've seen the first talk, is I would look at the hallmarks of good shepherding. Now I'm going to give you 14, and I'm going to do it pretty quick. So here we go. Firstly, leadership. And the Middle Eastern vision of a shepherd is that they lead from the front. This is not a guy with a sheepdog and some quad bikes all sort of herding the flock from the back. The shepherd leads from the front, and the sheep follow the shepherd. Secondly, responsibility. It's not about having a title. It's not about having a position. It is not about being the center of attention. It's about being responsible to God for the people, the sheep, that have been entrusted to you. Now, it doesn't matter whether your ministry is small, medium or large. You're not just answerable to somebody above you to whom you're accountable, but to God himself. So even if you can pull the wool over my eyes, or I can pull the wool over my bishop's eyes, God sees everything. Thirdly, covering. There is a very real sense in which there's a covering protection when you are above others, and part of the covering is a spiritual covering. So what Jesus said to Peter was that whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. In other words, what I allow and disallow, what I permit and what I don't permit, will flow right through the flock. So the way I am and the way that I live and what I teach flows right through the flock and the way that they are and the way that they teach. And that's very important to remember if you are in any form of leadership in anywhere in society. You can tell a school by the character of the headmistress. The character of a football club will be dependent upon the chairman, the character of a team on the character of the manager, and so on. Protection is something that shepherds do, and protection it's a sign that you care. It's a sign that you're going to champion the cause of your people. And that is why we don't just let everything go out to the flock. We will restrict the flow, because we want to protect our people against falsehood, just in the way that a shepherd would never want to take the sheep where there are poisonous plants. Fifthly, oversight. Shepherds can get dragged down to ground level, and particularly if you're really motivated by ministering to people first, because if you get down into ground level too much, you won't grow in church. You'll have a lot of very well cared for sheep, but you'll be stuck at that level, and you won't be able to see the big picture. You can be very emotionally torn and drawn by the people that you've become a little bit too close to, and that will stop you listening to God. So there has to be that level of oversight without getting dragged too far down. And now there's some balancing factors on that, because I've only done 5 out of 14. Influence. As I said with covering, the shepherd influences the flock. The way that the flock is, trends, fashions, forms of language can come into being through having a shepherd and some sheep. And so I find that the longer I've been in the church, the more people start to replicate the sort of ways of talking about God that I have, and the sort of language that I use. So it's very important, incredibly important, if anybody presumes to teach, that they are really careful about what comes out of their mouth at all times, not just when they're wearing a uniform or operating under a job description. 7 we've got to now, direction. And the direction of the flock is very, very important. Where are you going? Where are you being led? Are you being led to green pastures? Where have you chosen to go? Why have you chosen to go there? Who are you listening to? Who's told you to take those steps? Are you doing the things that you ought to do, the things you want to do, or the things that God's told you to do? Or are you deliberately interpreting what you want to do, or what you feel you ought to do, and telling God that's what he said, even when he didn't say it? Direction is ever so important, and it is so important, therefore, that every leader, every shepherd of every sort of group recognises that they are still sheep under the chief shepherd and guardian of our souls, Jesus Christ.